In today's episode of Niggas Told You So, the ceasefire deal that you gave Donald Trump credit for has been broken.
We are not letting Joe Biden take credit for the ceasefire deal in Gaza. He had 15 months to do something, and he didn't. You know who made this ceasefire deal actually happen? Donald Trump.
I know this creator somewhere in the car crying because he wanted to give Trump credit for that fake-ass ceasefire agreement. But remember, this is the same ceasefire agreement that was based off of the framework that was offered by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris 8 months prior to Donald Trump being elected. The irony of it all was Trump was notified before the ceasefire was broken, meaning he knew about the airstrikes before they happened, meaning he agreed to them.
Donald's coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, #1.
But Baba, he's going to end the war.
Came home the day I met Trump, and I gave my son a MAGA hat, and I said, I guess we're there. And he said, ew. His first words to me were, ew. I said, but Baba, he said he's gonna stop the war. And he said, okay, that's it. Give me that hat. We're voting for Trump.
But the thing I want to highlight is this. Why did you put your fate in the hands of a white supremacist? For instance, Mohammed Khalil, who was arrested, who's a permanent resident because of his pro-Palestine stance. But y'all knew this was going to happen because Trump said it on the campaign trail.
When I'm president, we will not allow our colleges to be taken over by violent radicals. And if you come here from another country and try to bring jihadism or anti-Americanism or anti-Semitism to our campuses, we will immediately deport you. You'll be out of that school.
Everything black people warned you about is happening in real time. What is it going to take for you guys to actually trust and believe in us?
It was never about coming here legally, ever. They've gone after individuals who have had their U.S. citizenship their entire fucking lives, and now they're going after green card holders. So Mohammed Khalil, a Palestinian graduate student at Columbia University, was arrested by ICE due to him advocating and protesting for Palestine. This arrest follows one of Trump's executive orders that directed the government to punish those who are advocating for Palestine, which they deem as anti-Semitic harassment and violence. Trump says this is the first of many to come, and this should fucking scare you. A green card holder has freedom of speech, the freedom to protest, freedom of assembly. If they will take their rights away, they will take your rights away. If you say something they don't like. They're not just going after people who didn't come here legally, because they are going to make it where you came here illegally, because you said something they did not like. First, they told Khalil that his visa was canceled. He's not on a visa. He's a legal permanent resident. So after Khalil's wife went to go get the green card to show ICE, they said the green card has been revoked. Mind you. The reason they revoke green cards is if there's criminal activity or fraud in the application process. Elon Musk rat. It's crazy because this is coming from the party that claims that they support the First Amendment. Only when you say things that they also agree with is when they support the First Amendment, though.
And this right here is why you should have just left it alone. Bitch, how dare you say, I don't know what I'm talking about. They voted third party. They thought. Look at what you just said. They thought. Them motherfuckers didn't think nothing. Them Palestinian Americans, them Arab Americans, they didn't think nothing. The first chance they get to be anti-black, that's what they did. Project 25 was right there in their face. They were told. So when I say we got our own fight and plights going on, I don't got time for nobody else shit, I stand on that and I mean that. I work for the Board of Elections. I got the numbers. They fail their people. A third party vote goes where? In the fucking trash. Y'all told them people to vote for Jill Stein. And Jill Stein pops up every election year, runs her scams and dip off, and you won't see her again till the next election. Shame on you.
Today is Friday, March 14th, and the Trump administration has arrested another Palestinian student from Columbia University. Her name is Leika Cordia, and she has been accused of overstaying her F1 student visa. And ICE has taken her into custody for deportation. These arrests are 100% meant to intimidate and silence students as well as dissent and protesters. And these arrests are also part of a broader plan to pressure Columbia University. On Thursday night, the Trump administration issued a demand for Columbia's Department of Middle Eastern, South Asian, and African Studies to be placed under academic receivership. This would strip the university of control over the department, setting a dangerous precedent for government intervention in academic institutions. So continue to be loud for Mahmoud Khalil and Leika Cordia. We need to demand their immediate release and ensure that their green cards and student visas.
There is growing backlash right now after ICE agents took into custody a Palestinian grad student and activist at Columbia University just over the weekend. An attorney for Mahmoud Khalid says that her client played a prominent role in protests against Israel on the campus last year and then called his arrest inexcusable and calculated. He's now being held in Louisiana.
Khalil and his American wife were here at Columbia University in their Columbia University-owned student housing, and ICE agents came in and they took him into custody. According to the attorney, when the agents were asked what were they doing, they were told that the State Department had ordered that his student visa be revoked. They were also told when asked, but he has permanent residency and that he has a green card. The reply from the agents was, that's being revoked too. They say that he was one of the leaders in a pro-Palestinian protest here at Columbia University, and therefore that was his crime. But it should be mentioned, we have not seen any official documents stating exactly what the crime is against him and what is going to happen to him from this point on.
Hey there, good morning. Well, a petition calling for Mahmoud Khalil's release has now exceeded 2 million signatures as anger and outrage spills into the streets, not just here in New York City, but in cities across the country, coast to coast, including protests planned for Chicago today, also across the country in California as well, with protesters saying this is an infringement on the freedom of speech. Some people saying it is one of the biggest threats to the freedom of speech in some 50 years or so. You may recall that Khalil was arrested from his university-owned apartment on Saturday night in front of his pregnant wife. She's 8 months pregnant. She's speaking out for the first time, releasing a statement pleading for his release, asking people to see it through her eyes, and that she hopes and wants him to be by her side when they deliver their first baby. Overnight, we are gaining some new insight from court documents that shows that Khalil had actually reached out to the interim president here at Columbia University the day before he was arrested, asking for legal protection and legal help, expressing concerns over recent threats. He said he was being doxxed in the days leading up to his arrest. I spoke with protesters who are calling for his release. Take a listen here.
It's a terrifying moment. People are being disappeared under our government's watch with no recourse, no charges, and it's a massive escalation that everybody should be concerned about.
And President Trump says that this is the first of many arrests to come. The DHS saying that Khalil, quote, led activities aligned to Hamas, though it's not clear if he is facing what, if any, charges, Jose.
When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, on a visitor's visa, okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities, I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out. It's as simple as that. This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. So when you apply for a student visa, or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason. But I think being a supporter of Hamas and coming into our universities and turning them upside down and being complicit in what are clearly crimes of vandalization, complicit in shutting down learning institutions. There are kids at these schools that can't go to class. You pay all this money to these high-priced schools that are supposed to be of great esteem, and you can't even go to class. You're afraid to go to class because these lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in. And if you do it once you get in, we're going to revoke it and kick you.
No one is talking about this, so I'm going to talk about it. First, I'm going to tell you who he is. give you some background to Columbia University, and then tell you why the Europeans and Americans see this completely different. So his name is Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian guy born in Syria. He works with the British government in Syria, where he helps them with translating Arabic and understanding what's going on, right? The local culture. With a lot of government assistance, some of it from the UK government, he ends up in America at Columbia University. There he works with activists, where he's the lead negotiator, and they have two main goals when they negotiate. Number one, they want Columbia to get rid of anything to do with Israel. Okay, so don't invest your money there, don't support them, don't open a campus there. We want you to completely separate yourself from Israel. And number two, all the people involved in the protests, we don't want them to get into any trouble. We want them to be indemnified, okay? And you're going to work with us to get legal protection. They negotiated for days and never reached an agreement. So he never got those 2 points that he wanted to get. Fast forward, Trump has said those people involved in protests, essentially siding with the enemy combatants, we're going to get rid of you. Okay? They're not saying it 100% like that, but that's essentially what it is. And actually, the people protesting hate the Democrats and they hate the Republicans. So whether it's Trump or anyone else, they said, you're corrupt. All of you guys, we hate you. Now, in the UK, there was a lady called Shamima Begum. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And she went to Syria to fight, essentially, with enemy combatants. The UK government said, you're no longer one of us. If you side with the enemy when it comes to the military, we will take away your citizenship and leave you stateless. And that's what they did. She has not been allowed back into the UK. So you see, these cases are very, very...
Are all protests going to be considered domestic terrorism under Trump? Because for him, domestic terrorism could be anything from protesting on a college campus to vandalizing a Tesla. Some things that are not domestic terrorism, by the way, school shootings, neo-Nazi rallies, and January 6th. That apparently was a day of love. Now, wherever you fall, from hard left to more moderate, this affects you. Because throwing around the words domestic terrorism and illegal protest is a direct attack on our First Amendment rights. As citizens, we really only have two main ways of expressing our frustrations with the government. One, by voting, and two, by protesting. But Trump trying to call acts of protest domestic terrorism or illegal means that he can arbitrarily decide to use military force or ICE to arrest or deport people who are against his agenda. You know who else does that? Tyrants and dictators. But beyond the abuse of power, it's also an attempt to scare and divide you. There's a reason Trump used anti-Semitism as an excuse to cover up his unlawful arrest of Khalil. And it wasn't to protect Jews, obviously. It was to try and get two groups to turn on each other. It didn't work. They know that there is actually so much more that unites average Americans than divides us. We all pay taxes. We want what's best for our families. We know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck or worry about retirement. So they want to scare us into not speaking up for each other. But don't let them stop you.
The question here is about whether speech can result in people's legal rights being taken away.
He's a virulent anti-Semite. He came here on a student visa. He's paid by a terrorist organization that beheads babies.
What evidence do you have of
beheads babies?
Wait.
I have evidence.
So I'm sorry, just to be clear, you're alleging that he's paid by
He's a
who?
paid protester.
By who?
Well, I didn't ask my intelligence division exactly who paid for him, but he's being paid by. He's being paid.
That's a pretty explosive allegation. Who is he being paid by?
Can I ask you a question?
No, you said you had evidence. Who is he being paid by?
He's being paid by organizations that are anti-American, that are engaged in nefarious activities. I don't ask my intelligence division to give me...
Then don't come on national TV and say on things. Don't come on national TV.
Do you know who he's being paid by?
I don't, and I'm not alleging that he's being paid.
Are you okay with what he's doing?
I'm not alleging he's being paid by because I don't know.
Are you okay with anti-Semitism?
You are coming on national TV and using this platform
Jewish students? No, I'm not. Are you okay with hate speech?
Don't make this about that. Make it about the fact that
that's exactly what it's about.
That you talk louder doesn't mean anything. You're making this about. You are saying things on national TV that you cannot corroborate. That is irresponsible, and you should not.
Why don't you ask the NYPD Intelligence Bureau?
Well,
why don't you ask the FBI and the CIA?
Because I don't speak to them.
They know exactly what's going on.
If there's evidence, bring it out.
Hold on, I'm going to ask one more time. Do you know for a fact that he is being paid by another entity, especially a terrorist organization? Can you state that as a fact?
I can state with the fact that he is being paid, as the other professional protesters are being paid, by anti-American organizations that are engaged in nefarious activities.
So if that allegation...
That I can confirm.
Okay, so Bruce, I'm just going to say it right here. You've just made that claim. There's no evidence that I know of. There's no evidence that you've provided.
Well, he can sue me then.
And I mean,
then we'll come out in court.
He's free to do whatever he wants. But the United States government has not made that allegation. They have not made charges against him on that.
Of course, they made that allegation. That's why he's being.
No, they haven't.
What's up, everybody? This is a question to the Arab voters who went against Kamala Harris, either voted third party or Trump, because of Palestine and Gaza. How exactly are you feeling right now with the ceasefire officially broken? Not only did Trump say that he would go in there and develop the territory for himself and his interests, now fighting has resumed and Palestine is suffering again. So what was it all for? What was your protest vote against Kamala Harris for? You literally just killed an entire group of people at this point because of pettiness. From what I understand, Palestinians were begging you to vote for Kamala Harris and not Donald Trump or third party, and you just completely ignored them. So this falls on you. Everything that you guys supported, it comes back to you. If anything bad that happens to Gaza at this point, Arab Americans who voted for Trump or against Kamala, your fault. No apologies.
In the community are at a loss for words. Last night was a very rough night for most of us.
One of the strangest tragedies in this election result is the Arab population in Michigan. There was a group of Arabs who decided that Trump was the person they wanted to win. It wasn't just that they weren't going to vote for Kamala Harris, but they actively voted for Trump. And it was all based on Trump's telling them that he was going to call for a ceasefire as soon as he was elected. Now, I find this very sad and also perplexing because Trump is very, very close with extremely right-wing Israelis who publicly said that they wanted to annex the West Bank and Gaza, and they didn't want a ceasefire at all, and they just wanted to maximize the force being used against Palestinians. I can understand being angry at the Democrats and Kamala Harris as well as Biden on this topic, but the idea that Trump was going to be better really is perplexing. There's an Arab group that is sending a letter to Trump saying, please support the ceasefire you promised you were going to support. We voted for you because we thought you were the best choice for the country. But instead, he has nominated Marco Rubio and Mike Huckabee, and Rubio has said he is in no way supportive of a ceasefire. He thinks Israel should ramp up their campaign. And Mike Huckabee is very much on record as having said he was supportive of Israel annexing the West Bank and Gaza, or at least supportive of the people who would say that that's what they want to do. The situation for the Palestinians is going to get much, much, much worse. And this is the outcome I was concerned about. And, you know, I can understand to some extent the idea that people didn't want to vote for someone who supported a policy that they disagreed with very strongly. But the risk of it getting so much worse was something that I just didn't feel was worth it, was worth sending that message to the Democrats, because Palestinians really don't have much time and they don't have much space to go for 4 years or longer in the situation that they're in.
My neighbor was supporting
Elon Musk. That's what you voted for. What do you?
We don't read.
I don't talking about
so we're just going to about that.
And all the hatred pointed at Palestinians for Trump's win should be pointed at the people who actually voted for him.
Hey, Maya, at least in my neck of the woods, no one seems mad at Palestinians. Rather, they seem mad at the Americans who were advocating, they said, on behalf of Palestinians, trying to convince other Americans to sit this election out or not vote for Kamala or vote third or whatever it is. And whether or not that made the election or not, you still bear responsibility that you are trying to push off onto a larger group of people, Palestinians. People are mad at you. People are mad at people like Madeline Pendleton and other influencers in America that might have contributed to where we are now. Hope this helps.
To the people that decided not to vote for Kamala Harris because of Gaza, let me ask you, was it worth it? Was it worth it withholding your vote so that Trump could be elected? Trump just announced that he wants all the people from Gaza to leave, all the Palestinians to leave. And when he said that, who was right beside him? Netanyahu. He was more than happy and smiling. All sunshine and rainbows between those two. You could have had Kamala Harris, who through the Joe Biden administration was somehow restraining Netanyahu. But now, with Trump, everything's loose. Now Netanyahu can do whatever he wants. Israel can continue their ethnic cleansing of Gaza. So I ask you again, was it worth it? Honestly, my heart goes out to the people of Gaza. But honestly, I don't care for the people in the United States that could have voted to prevent this. This is on you.
In today's episode of Too Fucking Bad, You Got What You Voted For, I present you these dumb fucks.
Days before the last presidential election, Donald Trump was the invited guest at the Great Commoner restaurant in Dearborn, Michigan. Albert Abbas says he extended that invitation, a decision he is now reflecting on, given all that has happened in the last 24 hours.
Many in the community are at a loss for words. Last night was a very rough night for most of us.
Abbas is Arab American and one of a number of Democrats who voted for Trump. Abbas says he hoped Trump would do more than President Joe Biden did to help Palestinians suffering in Gaza.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip.
But after Trump said Palestinians should leave Gaza so it can be redeveloped, Abbas says not only does he feel betrayed, he's hearing from a number of people angered over his past support of Trump.
People were really, really frustrated. And I don't think there's anyone to blame. At the end of the day, as Arab Americans or Muslims, we really didn't have much of a choice.
Dearborn, a Detroit suburb, is home to the largest Arab American population in the United States, a community which helped Trump carry the critical swing state. He won 42% of the vote in Dearborn versus Vice President Harris with 36% and Jill Stein with 18%. In 2020, Biden handily carried the city with 69%. Faye Nimmer voted for Trump in 2024 out of frustration over the previous administration's support of Israel. Now, she is troubled by the president's proposal to move Palestinians out of Gaza.
I mean, it's very concerning and it's infuriating.
Personal feelings, you're infuriated, but standing by your decision for now to have voted for Trump.
Correct.
And what would move that needle for you to say, you know what, I made a mistake?
Palestine is the red line for this community.
Nimmer says she suspects Trump is bluffing and is using his proposal as some sort of negotiating tactic. That's the same sentiment shared by Amar Zar.
First, this is clearly not going to happen, right?
And real estate broker Ali Alfarajala.
A lot of people are calling me and texting me saying, hey, how did your vote work out? How was that third party vote?
Both were so-called protest voters. Neither supported Trump or Harris. Are there any sort of second thoughts now about having supported a third-party candidate?
Absolutely not. And I'll still do it again and again and again. I didn't vote for Trump. So a protest vote, I don't know. I would say it was a targeted vote of conscience to say that the children of Gaza have to mean something. Their death has to mean something.
And while Arab Americans here were divided in the past, going forward, one point is uniting them: opposition to Trump's proposal to move Palestinians out of Gaza.
The community will be unified. I will tell you this. The Palestinian people would rather die and live in a demolition site than to be ethnically cleansed and being
sent out of Gaza to Egypt or Jordan.
What do you do with that? He told you what he was going to do. We told you what he was going to do. And you guys either outright voted for him or still voted for a candidate that was never going to win, allowing him to get in. And now you guys are like, I can't believe he's doing this. That woman who outright voted for him, Palestine is a red line for this community. I voted for him because of the previous administration's support of Israel. You didn't know that Trump supported Israel? Way more than Joe Biden did. I feel bad for the people of Palestine. You three motherfuckers, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. You guys did this. Own it.
Israel started dropping bombs in the middle of Gaza last night, in the middle of Ramadan, in the middle of a ceasefire. Even though they never really respected the ceasefire in the first place, now we're watching people only have tents to save them from these 3,000-pound bombs. Over 400 people have been killed, and they're also bombing Yemen because Yemen won't let their ships pass unless they're letting aid into Gaza. So even before they were outright bombing people, even though they were still shooting people and breaking that ceasefire, they were also not letting food into the space. And don't worry, Israel came online and let everybody know that the United States gave them the go-ahead. So guess we're all clear, and nothing bad can come from this because the U.S. says it's okay. Do you see how fucking stupid and ridiculous that sounds? I'm so tired of being a part of this fucking empire. So tired of watching people to the left and right of me every day fucking suffer because their government isn't taking care of them, and then waking up and seeing that in the middle of the night we've committed some type of atrocity with the USA fucking stamp of approval on it. It's disgusting.
Now look at this. If you were a Palestinian student and you did any protesting at any one of those schools, ISIS now looking for you. Yes, they are. Trump just announced that if you were a Palestinian student and you had anything to do with any of the protesting, that he wanted you arrested. I thought you guys were written tickets. I thought they just sent you guys on about your merry way, said don't do it anymore, and that was the end of it. But no, ICE is looking for you. So when they find you, I'm sure they're going to look into your whole family and possibly try to do some deportation of these Palestinian students. Wow. Wow.
So all these Muslim and Arabic people started that campaign to vote against Kamala Harris, talking about the Abandon Harris campaign. And now that Donald Trump is doing what he said he was going to do, which is not care about Palestine, now they want to get it on here and beg Biden and Harris for help? Say that they have to do something before it stains their reputation before they leave office? And you dedicated your resources to voting for the man who said to turn it basically into a parking lot?
I want to start with the results out of Dearborn and what Donald Trump's win means for Arab American voters there and around Michigan. What's your biggest takeaway from that?
For many of the Arab Americans in Dearborn Heights, and Hamtramck, it was not so much a pro-Trump vote, but really an anti-Biden-Harris administration vote. We heard that anecdotally, and I think that that is borne out in the numbers too. But I think looking forward, we have to recognize that folks that Donald Trump has already announced to be in his inner circle, in his cabinet, folks like Elise Stefanik, Marco Rubio, they are staunchly in support of Israel. So I don't know if the folks will have buyer's remorse in those communities, but I think that these folks will shake it up a bit.